I'm coming to you today to ask for your help in bringing together an incredible project, the Community Mindfulness Center. This inclusive space is intended to promote the well-being of our community locally and abroad, as well as to help us discover a sense of well-being and basic goodness. We are trying to raise $1 million for this state-of-the-art facility, which will provide both spiritual and secular programming. We really hope that you can come together to help us make this dream into a reality.
Title of this evening's talk is what?
Invite it in.
Invite. I started with that word invite. Whatever shows up. Be very generous with your attention. Give everything your attention. And when something, you wake up in the morning just to make a little story out of it, you don't feel so good. You feel pretty ragged. Maybe you have some bad dreams. Maybe anything happening. Please invite it. Just, I'm not saying make some kind of a gesture that is of futility, but actually invite things in so you can feel your emotions, the texture of your mind, the thoughts, the memories, the concepts. Please do that. You can train yourself to do that through the sitting practice of meditation, as I understand it, and as I've been practicing for a long time. There is no solid self in the skandhas: form, feeling, perception, concept, consciousness, form, feeling, perception, concept of thinking process, evaluation, judgment, analysis. That area of consciousness is grasping, rejecting, shutting down, opening up, switching, changing, modifying, analyzing, blaming. And then the other one, the consciousness itself, the six sense fields, that which sees, smells, tastes, touch, the six sense fields and their objects that make this illusion look so incredibly real, so believable. It hurts. The nerve endings are braided or tickled. That does not prove anything. All it does is say, if you see it, this is an illusion. This is a little dot in time that the consciousness, which you think is a person, life, and has hands, nose, tongue, body, mind, and has a certain orientation this way or that way, is real. It's not that it's not there, but the space that it's there in is also an illusion. Time and space are not real. Don't believe this. Please don't just stop. I'm not thinking that you would, but I think it might be good for me to say that so you get an idea. My intention is to help you turn your attention, that's with an A, over to what is arising in the mind stream. Right here. This is the mind stream right here. Turn your mind over to that, turn your attention over to that, and just observe it. Don't accept it, don't reject it, and don't turn away from it. And the practice of awareness, starting with an A, is about, here it comes, being aware that you can't quite succeed at that. That's awareness. That's not failure. To some meditation teachers, they don't want you to fail, so they'll teach you techniques for not falling asleep. I don't give a shit if you fall asleep. If you're a student of mine, you can come in this sendo and fall right over. Probably won't do it more than once. But it's awareness about what's happening there, not succeeding at being wide awake all the time with big buggy eyes. And it's not about following your thoughts. It's not about labeling thinking. It's not about. It's not about. What is it about? It's about something. Awareness. And it doesn't matter what you're aware of. You can be aware of this movement. You can be aware of this sound. It's all awareness. There is no right object in consciousness. There is no wrong object in consciousness. And if we think there is, right up to and including intense thoughts, judgments of others, just creates an intense belief in the polarity that we're all deluded by. It's called relative truth. You know, the technical word, it's Samriti Satya. They've been studying this for way before the Buddha came along in ancient India. You have the opportunity, just because you're here and you have a body and you're listening to someone, not particularly promoting you believe in Buddhism or become a monk or even listen to me anymore at all. But you might want to consider, sit down, hold still, and watch what comes and goes in any of the sense fields including the mind, without comment. If you do that, this is awareness. This is where you're emphasizing the awareness rather than what's in it. It's like emphasizing the space in a room and not particularly the furniture. But you don't ignore the furniture either, because the furniture is showing you the shape of the consciousness. Unless you get fastened onto just to continue to use those examples, the shape of a coffee table or the shape of a lamp. That's what happens. You get caught on those shapes, those parts of your life, those things you believe in. Your mom, your dad, how you were treated, what somebody said to you 3 days ago that still is irritating you, or what's written on the back of somebody's car as they come speeding by you. Painful stuff. It's not that you need to shut that out or do anything with it. Just be aware of the space that is around that, because the space that is around that is, for lack of a better word, is eternal. It doesn't come or go. It doesn't budge. It doesn't move. And you are that. Do you have any identity at all? It's just the space in which things occur, not the things themselves. It takes a long time to see that. And when you see that, there will be no credential. There'll be no, wow, I think I just attained samadhi. Whoop-de-doo. Who should I tell? I think I just had a kensho, insight into my true nature. Those are there, but they are just stair steps, and they don't even go anywhere. You think they go somewhere, then you'll look for the next stair step and the next stair, and you'll actually create them. Am I accusing of anything, blaming of it for anything? No, I'm just saying it's very likely that if you keep looking for reference points, they'll keep tumbling down the stairway. So invite everything that shows up. Whatever's going this way or going that way. Have an attitude of receiving what that is. And you might not know what it is that you're inviting in or what it is that you're seeing. It could be very challenging. It could be very painful. And because we all go in cycles, it's very likely that you'll run into an area of your life, maybe next March, maybe last September, where just for 3 days, 3 weeks, maybe for a month or even longer, that just, no matter what happened, it just felt not so good. And even though you maybe have been meditating for 10 years. Do not conclude. As soon as you conclude, you stop observing, you stop receiving, you stop inviting. Don't conclude anything. Let the causes and conditions around you, dependent origination, pratitya samutpada, let that do its own concluding. And when you see something concluding, realize that this is an illusion, that nothing actually occurs. As I've said, I'll say again. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. Don't shut down on it as some kind of belief. Not that you would. It's not that kind of an understanding or that kind of a realization or a I don't know if I could say anything more about it. I'd sure like some questions if you have them.
Jeez, and Ryan, can we stop looking for reference points?
You can't do it as an intention. You can only be aware that you look for reference points and you're actually trying to hang your hat on something to give you some kind of confidence that what you're doing is right, or some kind of confidence maybe that you need to change gears. So if you succeed at stopping looking for reference points, this is still ego. It's just an ego that no longer looks for reference points. It's more very fancy and highfalutin, but it's still identity. So it's important to be aware that you're doing that rather than have some kind of agenda about stopping that. More?
Jeez, and Ryan. So can looking for reference points continue indefinitely, even if we see that this is?
It may, but you won't care. And when I say you won't care, the fundamental nature of consciousness only, if there's still a living form, then you're still going to be embroiled in samsara, chop wood, carry water. You're still going to get a headache. You're still going to have a disagreement with someone across the kitchen table. Those are still going to come. That's why it is so profound and vast. You cannot find anyone who's awake or anyone who is asleep. It transcends the polarity. So it doesn't join one side, I'm awake. It doesn't join one side, I no longer have reference points. It's worse than that, it's better than that. It's absolutely devastating. Any kind of centrality or any kind of center or any kind of fringe. It blows that. It's just gone. There is no time. There's no space. Nothing occurs. It is an illusion. If it's an illusion, then nothing actually happens. I'm just using relative stuff to tell you, not because I'm such a wonderful dude, but because I'm looking at this and I'm encouraging you to see it. You don't ever have to listen to me again. If you understand what I'm saying to you right now, you stop. Don't ever tune in again. But if you need to be reminded, I'm here every single day to do what? To remind you that you need to find out who you are. You don't need to believe anything. You don't need to disbelieve anything or ignore anything. That's passion, aggression, and ignorance. That's what the whole world is caught up in, and we're just driving ourselves crazy right up to the edge of extinction, the way it's looking lately. Maybe not. Maybe something might happen that'll change it around, but there's not much of a reverse gear in the weather situation. That's a horrible situation. It's happening. The political situation keeps doing this. All you have to do is read a little bit of history. Just start with Stalin, or maybe you could start further back than that with Hitler, World War I, or go back even further to the Peloponnesian Wars. People wanting to control other people, and they're all unreal. Yes.
Sokuzan, you said earlier, I think you said that the furniture, I took that to mean form, that shows up, or shows us the shape of the space it occurs in.
It's just like in this room, there are people in the room, so there's furniture and things. So you just watch what moves. Watch what moves. But no, there's no specificity that has any import. I'm not saying that this human being isn't more important than a lampshade, of course, but that's kind of obvious. We're saying from the point of view of awareness, just be aware of what moves in the space until eventually you are aware of the space itself. And what is the space? Consciousness only. Everything is arising and coming and going is unreal. All those lampshades, all those people, very temporary. They show up, hang around a bit, they have their agenda, they have their story, they have their purpose or whatever. It does not last. It is impermanent. So while it's there, it's pretty damn important because we can feel it. But
It seems like there's something different from the sitting practice that shows up in terms of training our minds using the practice forms like Doan or Doshi.
what do you want to know?
I was hoping to understand how, are those forms still, are they showing us a space in which they occur in a similar way?
It depends on how you're working with what arises in consciousness. If whatever is arising in your mind, you're just watching it come, you're watching it go, and you don't add any agenda to it, no interpretation. Don't do anything with it. Then, in so-called post-meditation, you stop attaching, detaching, or really caring one way or another about anything from the point of view of value or no value. The polarity just comes apart. And if anything happens, you begin to really fundamentally appreciate what is in front of you, which is consciousness only, showing up as the illusion of forms. This is what I teach in the class I teach in Opening the Eye Mind. It's all about appreciating the apparent otherness, the differentiation when it's seen for what it actually is. There isn't anything separate from anything else. It takes a while. Yes. Go ahead.
Does a practice form have to have enough shape in order to serve as, and does it have to have some structure in order to
Some,
serve as?
but the structure needs to be something that you can do that isn't like challenging to you. And that it's not too challenging. You just sit still, sit symmetrical, hold still, but without being rigid. In other words, you don't demand that you hold still like they do in some traditions. Some Zen traditions, Rinzai, Zen, other forms are very, very macho about don't move, hit you with a stick. Feeling that kind of training is going to somehow help someone realize their true nature. And it will help you hold still. You don't want to get hit. You don't want to get yelled at. But the holding still is not the nature of reality. That's the nature of what? Fixation. So I'm not against that. Some people might need to practice that. Some people probably need to teach it in order to feel like they're teaching. Are they teaching something? Well, I might be missing something there. Maybe I should go study it. Doesn't look like it. It looks like you need to see who you are. I'm here to help you do that. Because otherwise we just end up fighting with each other, torturing each other, blaming each other. It's just, even as meditators or as monks, we realize how really difficult this is. That's why Sangha is so important. Community is so very important. We've got to have community. There has to be CCC, communicate, cooperate, collaborate, and then you have the fourth C. If you have the first three, you'll eventually have a community. One that is actually has some equilibrium happening there, rather than the specialness on one side and not so special on the other. More?
I'm not sure.
A little louder, please.
I'm not clear what you were just saying about how does it end up? Seems like some kind of schism where there's special on one side and not special on the other.
Picking and choosing. You think some people or some forms or some thoughts or some emotions or some ideas or some is better than something else. And it's not that there isn't a relative thing. We're not disrespecting the relative situation. We're just saying that that's another thing. So something tastes very good, something doesn't taste so good. We're not arguing with that. Just saying that that's unreal. What is real? You may ask. I would say find out. Find out. The only thing I can do here is to encourage you by saying you can see this. Would be a simple way. I can't promise it. But I say there's that possibility. With the intention that you want to see the truth, you can do this. This is really what the Buddha was saying and what teachers down through the centuries have said to their students, up to and including kick their asses if that's what was necessary.
I'm curious about, I don't know, if we practice some kind of middle way between too loose and the kind of tightness where you're being real macho. Is there a point where a form, whether it's sitting on the cushion or bowing to the altar or any other form, becomes so loose that it's not as useful for training the mind?
Well, you could speculate like that. That's why you need a teacher. That's why you need a teaching. That's why you need a community. So if that will find its own structure, it needs to be done through awareness, not through some macho structure where you have to do it this way or else, or because the guru said do this, so therefore you have to do it that way. That is a misunderstanding. And the downside of the misunderstanding is obvious. It's a misunderstanding. The upside of the misunderstanding, that kind of misunderstanding has been necessary down through the century for us to even receive this teaching. You have to have all the polarities. You have to have 18 schools coming out of the Buddha's, Buddha didn't lay out some kind of plan where everybody should function this way. He understood relative truth. And he understood that if his teaching was going to survive, it had to be allowed to go in all different directions, interpretations. Every one of those 18 schools is correct.
On an individual level, can a misunderstanding that the teacher should be obeyed be helpful somehow in the math?
Everything is helpful at some point. All dharmas agree at one point. All dharmas agree at one point. This is directly addressing the illusion of separation. There are no separate things. It just looks like it. If you think there are, you'll grasp at this and reject that in your mind stream or in your life stream or at the kitchen table or with your friends and enemies. Just observe, just receive. Invite everything. Anything that shows up, no matter how bad it smells, anything that shows up, no matter how sharp or pointed or abrasive, invite it. This doesn't mean go and torture yourself with it. If you invite something, you don't demand that it show up. You just invite it. And if it turns to you and say, "Oh, I'm not interested in your invitation," make no comment. What's important is, again, I've said over and over, it's the intention to invite, not the success at having someone accept your invitation. That's samsara. That's the world of up and down, back and forth, life and death, struggle, warfare. Yes.
Well, Divine, what does live in enlightenment, the pure precept, live in enlightenment, point at?
Take no position on anything. When a position comes up, don't shove it away. When a position comes up, don't accept it. When a position comes up, don't ignore it. It just shows up. It's like you're like the sky. And there's a black cloud, a white cloud, and there's a pile of, what's that called? That thing that should stay in the ocean but tends to float up in the air. Ambergris. You know about ambergris? Anybody know what ambergris is? What is it?
It comes out of a whale that they make perfume out of.
Who?
I don't know.
It comes out of the blowhole. They're in a blowhole like a butthole. Yeah, ambergris, they make perfume out of that. So you have a black cloud, a white cloud, and ambergris. You don't like whales? Did I answer your question?
Divine, when the pure precept is live in enlightenment.
Just live in the light. Just don't push it. With passion, aggression, and ignorance, you don't do anything with it. No matter how you feel, you don't push. No matter how you feel, you don't accept. No matter how you feel, you don't ignore. You just live in enlightenment. You are the thunderstorm. You are the rainbow. You are the lightning strike. You are this. You are the cockroach. You are the jackdaw. You know what a jackdaw is? What is it?
Crow-like. Eurasian crow.
A Eurasian crow. Okay. Good. Good one. Go ahead, please. You have more?
Well, Divine, what happens when we see ourselves failing?
So if there's just an invitation, in other words, you just see yourself failing. The failure is the dependent origination, and that needs to happen. The pratitya samutpada, it's a classical interpretation of this shows up, that goes away. When this shows up, then that goes away. Classic teaching. This caused that, caused that. So failure shows up because there was some kind of idea of trying to succeed. There's no idea of trying to succeed. There can't be any failure. So what you do is you just receive that. You just look at it. It's just like a dark cloud arises in consciousness. You watch it, you smell it, you don't do anything with it. It does not last. It will persist if you try to push it away or explain it or try not to be, or explain to yourself that you're not failing, or try to change gears so you won't be such a failure. Don't let anybody know that you're a failure. More about it if you have it.
Well, Divine, is it helpful to see that it's the body-mind complex that is failing and not the individual itself?
You mean like my bad health? Failing? I mean, that would be an example. I have bad health, so I'm failing. Trying to do something to keep it from collapsing altogether. You mean like that?
It's your body-mind complex. It's not consciousness that's failing.
The consciousness can't fail. Can't fail because it has no substance, there isn't anything. Consciousness is not something, just like the sky is not something. So it has no positionality.
Thank you, Alan. At book study, we were talking about the ambiguity of some of the forms and how that can cause discomfort. And I think Chiazan said something about we don't emphasize efficiency, we emphasize awareness.
Efficiency? Okay.
And it seems like I tend to get fixated on efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And I see, or I get frustrated by anything.
I gotcha. What's the question?
Is what's wrong with efficiency?
There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing to correct with you. You don't ever have to change that. That never has to go away. So to some extent, what Chiazan said would be appropriate. I would say a little bit more about that. I would say the desire for efficiency is awareness. But yeah, the eyebrows come together when you hear that. It sounds contradictory, doesn't it? Sit a lot. There's no result here. There's nothing you can get to. You can't get to awareness only or consciousness only. That's a teaching that is to help you work with it, but there's no result. The kind of result that will show up for you is just whatever happens is awareness. Right now you're separating awareness from what arises in it. And that's necessary for a while. But the way you're presenting the question, I can't. I have to say it that way.
When it looks like, when I'm judging something for not being done the right way or
Yes.
not being efficient, I don't, in that moment, I don't see that I'm fixated on efficiency.
Yes.
Is there a way to see that while it's happening?
There is, but it's going to probably take a lot of sitting meditation along with just living your life, working with that and watching that so that the observing part of the consciousness gets stronger just because you're training your mind to just observe. You're returning to the cushion, returning to the wall, returning to your mind stream, coming and going. You're watching it coming and going. You're slowly training yourself not to accept it, not to reject it, and not to look away. So that when your everyday situation, when those kinds of things coming up, being upset with something not being efficient, would be my way of saying what it sounds like you're saying. Eventually you begin to, because you're getting so good. It's not about gaining idea. You're not getting anywhere, but you're actually no longer prioritizing anything. You're just, whatever shows up, you're inviting it. It doesn't matter how you feel. It takes a long time, and that's a very subtle area that happens in consciousness that cannot be helped. It can be assisted by the thought process, but the thought process is under the auspices of the seventh consciousness or the ego or the narcissism of the mind. So it has to be done in a very subtle and a very direct way. That's what I'm endeavoring to point at. The way you ask the question, someone else might ask that, I might respond differently, but to you, I happen to know you fairly well, and I would say, what's the one that would fit this, a standard thing that I say that I'm probably going to start putting on t-shirts pretty soon? Be the shit you're trying to get rid of. That doesn't mean they give you a credential to be a terrible person, but it just means that work with it, invite the difficulty in, so you get a clearer picture of what it actually is, of how it's actually structured, how that negativity, that picking and choosing, or that demand for perfection you have. You want things to be a certain way, you're fussy in that way. And so at some point or points, or maybe no point at all, You're going to actually have to allow that, invite that into consciousness, and have the confidence. Don't know of another word, confidence may not work, but to have the audacity to just be that for 20 seconds, 20 minutes, 20 days, so that you can actually get a good taste for what the confusion is about, so that you can stop fueling it. You understand? A little bit. You can do that. Not everybody's ready for that instruction. You are. Further question out here in TV land? Mike C.
Like bowing.
Yes, sir.
When you talk about consciousness only, what overlap does that have with Shogyam Trungpa talking about the Great Eastern Sun or basic goodness?
So he's using those images. I occasionally would use those, but that's his way of talking about the Great Eastern Sun is to have some kind of idealization of great perfection. It's like the Dzogchen masters talking about the great perfection, the Great Eastern Sun. That if you just look at what this is, it's just perfect as it is. We don't need to go to war, fight with anything. So I think that would be his way of trying to help you with some unconditional confidence, not belief in something, and but some kind of basic understanding. Like basic goodness is fundamentally, even the worst person in the world basically just wants to be happy. But their way of getting happiness might be murdering people, because they've been so terrified by their causes and conditions, either in this lifetime, possibly, but in 3 lifetimes ago, because the consciousness does not separate just because the bodies come and go. The consciousness is everywhere all the time. Consciousness does not belong to anybody. You think that it does, and I'm not condemning it or anything. You'll probably continue to suffer looking for a self. There isn't one. That's an illusion. It's amazing, because if you realize it, then you're not concerned with getting rid of your ego. If you see that clown in the closet that's always coming out and wanting its way, it's unreal. You don't have to get rid of that character. But they no longer run your life. What does run your life? I would say it, to put it very bluntly, using the words that Mike has just brought up and quoting Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, is basic goodness. If you really understand who this is and what this situation is, you become speechless. You just don't have words for it. But you just know, you just understand that there's just basic goodness. There's just always Buddha, always awake. Nothing has ever slept anywhere. But if you're confused through passion, aggression, ignorance, wanting, hope, and fear, then you cover that, your Buddha nature up. It's just like a brilliant light that you're going to get covered up because it's just too bright. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do it. You could actually look at that. It might take you 20, 30 years, but you could do it. Mike?
Thank you.
Yes. You're welcome. Any further questions on Zoom? Yushin?
Bowing. What raises the consciousness? Bowing.
If I use your words, raising the consciousness or being more aware would be my way of saying it, is to less pushing, pulling, and shutting down. If you do anything with it, the consciousness starts to get usurped by or contaminated by, you could even say, by the hope and the fear, the desire for something better and the fear of something worse. So don't do anything. As I said a few moments ago, the title of this particular Dharma talk is, what was I saying?
Invite it in.
Invite it in. Invite everything. No matter what it is, invite it in. And it may come towards you, it may not. But it's the attitude or the intention that's important, not the result. You get hooked by results, we're right back to what Trungpa Rinpoche talked about in his 3rd book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. How do you cut through that? With awareness. You don't do it. There's nothing to do there. You just need to see that grasping for this and rejecting that and shutting down is materialistic, either spiritually materialistic, psychologically materialistic, or materially materialistic. Getting more stuff, getting more control.
When you're bowing,
You know,
is taking action a position? Bowing?
taking action, you mean like just grabbing some action? What do you mean?
Any action. Is any action taking a position?
Yes. Anytime you do anything, anytime I move, there's some kind of participation in the illusion that is, it looks like, looks like a reference point. And it's not about not having reference points, it's about awareness. So it's about watching what's coming and going without adding to it, subtracting, dividing, doing anything with it other than there it is. So taking one more thing about that, if you don't have an agenda about anything in particular, you're not reinforcing anything like that, then you might find that your actions come out of just a lot of clarity about what's happening around you, about what people are doing or saying. So it's more dance-like. You're watching the forms come and go. And your action will more than likely be more in line with the energy that's already flowing around in that room or that environment or that family or that country or that sangha, because you don't have a demand. It needs to be this way. This isn't thorough enough. This doesn't live up to my idea of what should be. Or maybe I need to be in control no matter what it is. It can look quite passive. It could look quite pushy or aggressive. You've seen me function in all of those ways. There's a few times I jump up and totally pissed off at everything and just storm out of here. Remember the one time where I broke the window out and jumped out? Well, I guess that was just a thought pattern. I didn't do it. But I thought about it. Go ahead.
When you're bowing, so the title of your talk is Invited In. Is that taking action?
A little bit. It's an attitude. You're looking at the world, things are coming and going, and you're just going to invite it in. You are going to be generous with your time and your space and your lap. Come in and have a seat. Come in, have a seat. Have some tea. Old ancient teaching in the Zen tradition. Have some tea. Generosity. And the other one is that time when the person came in who was full of himself, and the teacher said, have some tea, and he started pouring into the cup, and it overflowed onto the tatami mat, and the student said, the cup's overflowing. And he said something like, yes, just like your mind is so full that there's no room for anything to go in. Any action that you take has to do with karma, but that doesn't mean there can't be such a thing as enlightened action. Action that is completely in harmony with everything else that is in the apparent motion of the illusion.
So Corinne, buying in that area of inviting something in, there's a dynamic of agreeing.
Yes.
Sometimes even with two contrasting positions or people. Is there a quality to agreeing that is not grasping?
I'm trying to get close to what you're actually looking for there. I feel I'm not close to what you want to know. I'm kind of at the outskirts. Can you help me a little bit?
When I sit in front of somebody, I can agree with them and then walk away and suddenly not agree with them. And then I sit in front of someone else and agree with them. I just naturally agree with people. Can there be a dynamic of agreeing that's not a grasping or a poison on some level. The subjectivity of listening.
If I follow you, it's just beyond receive as much as possible. Agreement is an actual outflow. In other words, it's adding to something, and it's a safety feature of the ego. I agree with you. I agree. I see what you're saying. I agree. Don't agree. Don't say anything. Let them. When I say let them, I'm saying you don't have to give them any response at all. Now, if they ask you, do you agree with me? Say, yeah, not necessarily. Or you could say it some other vague way. You're a Libra, aren't you? Be vague. So just, you don't have to take a position for somebody else's benefit. You don't have to agree with anybody. Don't agree, don't disagree, don't ignore. Those are the 3 poisons that are just hanging in space. You're not agreeing, nor are you disagreeing, nor are you ignoring. You're not believing, you're not disbelieving. So when you agree, you believe something. And then when you walk away, you probably have I don't know, nausea, but some kind of just disagreeable feeling like you just stepped on your own foot or something. Am I close to what you're looking for? So less is better. Don't do anything. Do not support anybody's neurosis. That doesn't mean there might come another time when, because in order to really support someone, that's the only thing you can do. Because the priority there is to save all beings, to help others. You might see might be in an environment with a person where you can't do anything but be very supportive of them by agreeing with them. But it will be very situational. It will be about that particular suffering that's going on there. And if you get caught up in your intellect and right and wrong, then we come in, the ego comes in and says, well, you can't do that. They just are going to need to tough it out. Or don't listen to any of that gossip. When I say don't listen to it, of course, listen to it, but realize that it's that anytime you hear that kind of chatter trying to take a position of right or wrong or should be or shouldn't be, it's usually some kind of strategy of that part of the consciousness we call ego. Trying to be right, trying to get it right, not make a mistake. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Sir,
is inviting it in passion?
Yes. More?
Does that passion fuel circularity?
It might. It's always about awareness. It's not about stopping circularity. Don't accomplish anything. I will not be impressed. Occasionally people come to me with their awakening. Not many, because most people realize they're not awake. Okay, John, go for it.
Sean Bowing. The 10 paramitas, the perfections, the 10 perfections.
Yes.
If one tries to act within those qualities, is that a relative view in action, Bowing?
Yes. Paramitas have a very strong, they're meant to have a relative dynamic, but they also have a transcendent dynamic happening there. Just to say that it's both. They function in different ways, and they're just to give all of us as meditators, as students of the Buddha's teaching, some kind of a dynamic where we can work with those areas of the mind that have to do with meditation, discipline, morality, wisdom, exertion, and so on. Go ahead.
Could you say that they are the moral backbone of the universe?
You could say that, but I'm not sure what the motivation would be to say anything about it. Why would you say that? You have a why? Why because? Why because?
Well, Sean Bowing, you talked about not relying on references, but in your daily activities to to try to invoke those perfections within body, speech, and mind ballet.
Very good. I think that's important. And yeah, that has to do with the what I refer to as intention. Have the intention to do good, generosity. Have the intention to be respectful of other people. Have the intention to put effort into whatever you're working on. So I would say very much so. I don't know if I'd make it moral backbone. I would say maybe rib cage, maybe. I like things that contain things, not things that hold things up. And I'm fine with rib. I'm fine with backbone. I don't want my synovial cyst and my L4 vertebrae to take that personal and start acting up again, because that is painful. When your vertebrae gets mad at you, you're in for it. That's humor. Okay, shall we have any more questions? No? Anyone else? Yes.
If I think someone is getting away with something or should be held accountable for something.
You mean somebody stole your baseball mitt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that ego?
Did somebody steal your baseball mitt? Well, I think it is. I think it is a part of the self-centeredness. But it's always, you've heard me say 100 times, it's about awareness, not about changing into something else or being egoless. You know, if you think you've attained some kind of state of this or that, or you're no longer this kind of person, you're above ego or something. It's just any kind of positionality is just basically fixation or dualism. Self and other. I'm doing right, the other's doing wrong. More?
How does judgment of anyone else support my ego?
But you're over here and you see that they're doing something incorrect or wrong. It just enforces the polarity of self and other, the basic misunderstanding of subjective, objective are two different things. And if you see what this is, you can't find any objects. You can't even find a subject. It's just consciousness. It's just a way of teaching that helps us using consciousness, self and other, or subjective, objective, to begin to conceptually support that which you are seeing, which is just consciousness only. You don't see separate beings anywhere. And if you do, then you at the same time you realize it is an illusion. It's just unreal. It has no legs. And if it does, they're unreal. Consciousness nothing comes or goes. It's just this all the time. You can get a clue to that if you contemplate just a little bit that the future never gets here and the past can't be recovered. Even your memory can't recover the past. You can't remember what happened. You want me to test you?
Sure.
What happened at 3:30 yesterday afternoon? See? Okay, now what happens tomorrow afternoon at 5 p.m.? What happens?
I get in my car to come home from work.
About 4:30.
I eat a snack.
You guys hear that? She eats a snack at 4:30. So you just predicted the future but couldn't remember the past. Did I prove my point? I don't know if I did or not, but I think it's probably getting later than we all want to stay up. So we'll continue to do this. So did you have a final question? Go ahead. One more, and then we'll close.
If difficulty shows up in Sangha, you frequently encourage us to CCC or interview with each other.
I do.
If that shows up as two people seeing things a different way, does that just increase the sense of duality or otherness?
It might, but it's always about awareness. And if there's anyone in here who is in part of this Sangha, if someone asks you to sit down face to face and talk with you about something, you should try to agree with that. You don't have to say much, but you could at least listen to what they're saying. So please do that. Work with people where they're at if you can. It can be very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to sit with someone and look in someone else's eyes for a few minutes before you even talk. Just be with that person and then begin to ask about the situation that you're maybe challenged by or confused by. Very good idea to do that. Thank you so much.
I'm coming to you today to ask for your help in bringing together an incredible project, the Community Mindfulness Center. This inclusive space is intended to promote the well-being of our community locally and abroad, as well as to help us discover a sense of well-being and basic goodness. We are trying to raise $1 million for this state-of-the-art facility, which will provide both spiritual and secular programming. We really hope that you can come together to help us make this dream into a reality.